Hey guys, welcome back to the shop. I need to broach a 3/16 keyway into a 5/8 of an inch bore. That's awful small bore to broach on the shaper. That's what we have, that's what we're going to try to use. We first got to make the tool holder and the bar. So let's go do it. Alright guys, what I want to build is a bore and bar holder for the shaper. But I want to build it to where I can change the bars in and out, I can index the bars if I want, and I could just build a bar for this one, but that's not the point. I want to build a dedicated holder. And what we want to do is broach a 3/16 keyway into a 5/8 bore. Now that's no small task on a shaper. The bars get so small that they're not rigid enough to handle the cut, so we're going to try to build the biggest bar that we can do in a 5/8 hole and still have room for the cutter to protrude below the bar. We got to make the cutter adjustable, that way as the cut progresses we can move the cutter down in the bar and continue to cut to the depth of the keyway. That's the plan anyway. So first thing we need to do is go over to the shaper, knock some of the sharp edges off of this bar here, and get started. Okay, first we're going to clean up this saw cut, then we're going to come in with a radius tool and knock the sharp edges off of this side, and then we'll flip it and knock them off the other. Okay, now let's put the radius tool in and knock the sharp corners off of one side. I guess we'll do them both. Might as well. Let's go over to the bench and I'll explain the next step. Okay, we got our 1.5" round stock and our bar that we just machined in the shaper. I took it over and I knocked the scale off around where we're going to be welding with an angle grinder. And the reason why we're going to weld this before we machine the hole in this is because if we was to weld it and then if we was to machine it and then weld it, it would distort. So we're doing it the other way. We're going to weld it first and then machine it so we don't get so much distortion. So let's go ahead and stick this guy together. We're just going to eyeball it. It ain't got to be perfect, but we want it to be nice. Turned out real nice. Now that it's cooled off, we just lined it up by eye, and as long as I can't tell by eye that it's off, I'm good with that. The weld looks pretty good. We welded it hot, about 150 amps. We tigged it, and here's going to be our boring bar, and that's just an old grade 8 3/4 tin bolt, and a couple nuts. I think it'll be pretty interesting the way that we hold the tool steel in here, and I'll show you that here in a minute. But first, let's go over the lathe and bore this guy out to accept this bolt. Alright, we got our piece in the 3-jaw here, and man, that is a dangerous piece swinging around there. And as much as I like this old lathe, it doesn't care at all about me. It would just as soon chew me up in here as it would, you know, the metal we're about to cut. And as bad as a thought as that is, you know, I think it's one that everybody who runs a lathe probably should have before they run it. But that doesn't change the fact that we need to drill this out. So the first thing that we're going to do is center drill it, pilot drill it. Then we'll come in with the biggest drill that we have that's closest undersize to the size hole we need. Then I'll have to come in with a bar to finish it up because I don't have the proper drill to do it in one shot. So I'll get you a better angle and we'll cut this guy. Clear. We're going to kind of run it a little slow. It's going to be a little off balance. Try our best to not get hurt. Let's get set up and bore this guy out. Okay, we got our part drilled and we're ready to bore it. So I'm going to show you just a little of it and then we'll go to the bench and talk about the next step. Turned out nice. I'm more than pleased with that. We know the bore's, square with the back of the bar here. Plus, we were holding this in the 3-jaw, so it should be, pretty square. And not that it's really that important, but it's nice to have it, as close as we can get it to true. Now it's onto the bar. First thing I'm going to do, and I'm going to do this off camera, is I'm going to put these nuts in the lathe and turn about 1/3 or more of the thickness off of them. They don't need to be this big in order to hold this bar into this holder. And then I'm going to take this, what will soon be our boring bar, over to the shaper, and I'll explain to you what my idea is on how I'm going to hold the tool steel in it. Another thing, a lot of good stuff in this book. It's by Tom Lipton, you know, especially on sheet metal work and stuff like that. I've got a lot of valuable information from this book, and it's an easy read. And of course, Tom's not paying me to do this, but I do believe that a lot of people would benefit from reading it. So if you get a chance, check it out. Well, here's the plan for the bar. Now this is a fairly complicated or multiple step procedure that I'm going to use here. We've got a V-block here, and we're using what we have. This is the best that I have, other than setting the rotary table up on here and holding this in the forejaw on the shaper. But what I'm going to do is set this bar in here, and I'm going to use the mechanical action of the shaper to press this bar into this block. I would not want to have this rotated and pressing against these clamps. This is actually a grinding fixture. But that should hold it. And then we're going to come in with this extremely small slotting tool, and we're going to slot down to the depth that we want, about 220 thousandths. We're going to leave this slot a little deep. We can always come back in the lathe and face it off to the depth that we need. Then we're going to step up to our next size, and then basically our final dimension. Last and final cutter number 3, and of course the reason why we're using multiple cutters is just to reduce the pressure. Alright, let's go talk about it. Well, that turned out real nice. That's a good fit. I mean, that's exactly what I was looking for. And you know, it's a little, each piece of tool steel is ground different, and it's a little bit wider. You know, this piece happens to be a little wider and this way than this way, but it fits really well. And we cut this slot for the smallest side, so you know, we can be tight on basically all of the tool steel that we have. This is one of the smaller widths that I've got, and 3/16. But anyway, We turned our nuts here down in thickness on the lathe. We did that off camera. And that's about it. You know, next we will finish this bar up. We'll put it in the lathe. We'll turn a section of it down to about 550 thousandths. We'll make our end cap with set screws. We'll weld it. And then we'll mock up a test bore and actually test it and see if it works. Well guys, is it going to work? I don't know. You know, we'll find out together, that's for sure. It should be fun anyway. It has been for me up to this point. If you haven't, hit this little guy up here and subscribe to the channel. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. And stay tuned for part 2, where we see if this guy really works or not. And as always, I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.